Okay, Jasmine, we got to bring out our first guest already, don't we?
Yeah, I'm excited. It is that was jam-packed. We got some first-time viewers here in the chat. Like we said, if you're just joining us, we are live. So we can see your comments coming through. Feel free to ask your questions throughout. And we are also dropping links in there. So all the things that just were covered with Jeff, they're featured on our What's New page. You can go and subscribe to updates. But AM, who is our first guest?
Yeah, it's really interesting. We're talking a lot about new things, right? But oftentimes when you're moving to the cloud or you're first getting started with the cloud, you've got things that already exist, and you can't just always take advantage of new things. You got to still use the things that you have, just like we're talking about with IPv4, for example. And we're going to be talking about some database technology where we've made it easier for you to bring your existing database engine with you with Db2. So we've got our friend Karthik joining us. I'm going to bring him in right now. Welcome to the show, Karthik. How's it going?
Hey, Jasmine. I'm good. How are you guys? And excited to be here.
Yeah, doing great.
Cool. I'm Karthik Gopalakrishnan, Senior Product Manager for Amazon RDS for Db2.
Yeah. How was my intro there for Db2? A lot of our customers are probably running Db2 somewhere and looking to bring it to AWS. Is that fair?
That's fair point. And yeah, Db2 is a relational database developed by IBM, and it's been commercially available since 1983. And IBM first developed it for mainframes and then released it for Linux, Unix, and Windows platforms. You know what? Db2 today powers the most business critical applications like your core banking applications or your airline ticketing systems. So these are all the critical workloads that customers look to move to cloud.
Very nice. And so I'm familiar with RDS, but maybe not everybody watching is. Let's talk a little bit about RDS and where that fits in with Db2, right? I think customers for a long time have gotten a lot of usage out of RDS, kind of taking away some of those more, I'll call them maybe tedious aspects of managing a database, taking some of the harder to do things out of managing a database and, building it for a cloud environment as well is kind of what I look at too. But let's talk a little bit about RDS and how Db2 fits in there.
Yeah, RDS, as many of you might know, is a managed database service that helps you to set up, operate, and scale the databases in the AWS cloud. So RDS today supports open source engines like Postgres, MySQL, and MariaDB, and it also supports commercial database engines like Oracle and SQL Server. So Db2 is our newest engine that we are supporting in the RDS. So that will help Db2 customers to set up, operate, and scale Db2 databases in the cloud.
Very nice. Yeah. And, when you talk to customers about their Db2 workloads, what are they most concerned with when moving to the cloud with that workload? What types of things are you hearing from them that are really important to them?
So we have been talking to a lot of Db2 customers, and most of them are today deployed on a self-managed environment. Either it could be an on-premise data center or self-managed on EC2. And some of the pain points that they say is they invest a considerable amount of time and resources in infrastructure provisioning, right, or database provisioning, setting up backups. And in addition to all these, they have to ensure that their databases are highly available, which is a need for a prerequisite for any production application, right? So we heard these pain points from the customers, Db2 customers in specific, and that's why we built RDS for Db2.
Yeah, so you mentioned, a lot of high availability. What are some of the other features such as security that customers will know that they are there when they're using RDS for Db2?
Yeah, so outside of high availability, yeah, customers do look for to operate a secure database in the cloud. So within RDS for Db2, we provide encryption at rest as well as in transit. Customers can authenticate their databases using their local users, but if they want to use a managed, like they can use AWS Managed Active Directory. And more importantly, customers, especially in regulated industries, look for compliance certifications. So RDS for DB2 is compliant with FedRAMP, PCI, SOC, so some of the standard ones, and it is even HIPAA ready. So these are some of the security and compliance aspects that customers look for to run their production databases, which we offer in RDS for DB2. Similarly, we also offer a lot of migration options, both the native migration options. For example, if customers are very much used to their backup and restore or export and import, so they can use those methods and native utilities to migrate their databases. And then they can also use AWS Database Migration Service, which provides them a seamless experience. So they have a variety of options to move and ensure that their databases are highly available, durable, and secure on RDS.
Nice. That's a feature set that folks can probably take up and get running with, right? Pretty quickly.
Yep, it is. But one of the features I would like to highlight is the high availability, because that is what we have been hearing from a lot of customers. Today, if customers are deployed on their self-managed environments, they have to configure high availability, and it takes a lot of time, right? When you say high availability, it usually spans across different data centers. They have to configure, provision the infrastructure across the databases, and they have to ensure databases get replicated across the data centers and ensures that the failovers happen. That is an important aspect here. Whenever there is a failover,
you can have it, but if it doesn't utilize it when something fails, then you might as well not have it, right?
So this is one of our major pain point we have been hearing from customers. And guess what? Like, we have RDS MultiAZ, that in RDS for DB2, which synchronously replicates data from one data center or one availability zone to another one. So maybe I'll just zoom back. So within in AWS, we have AWS regions and we have availability zones, right? So within an AWS region, whenever you set up the database, you can set it up so that it replicates continuously from your current availability zone to a standby instance on a different availability zone. And more importantly, RDS MultiAZ takes care of the failover without any manual intervention. So if you are an application user, you can put your bet on RDS MultiAZ, and without any data loss, the failover happens without any manual intervention as well.
Nice. And you mentioned up top what DB2 is commonly used for, and it sounded like very important workloads, right? You said banking. That's definitely something you don't want going offline. So that's when high availability becomes the most important, right? Because any solution architect will tell you when we're talking high availability, it's always, the answer is it depends, right? On what you need and what you're using the workload for. And in the case of what it sounds like DB2's common use cases are for these highly important transactional workloads, right, tied to things like money, it becomes important to have that on, right, without failures. So
that is right. And most of these applications look for solutions like they don't like to have any data loss whenever there is a failover happens, and they like to see a very minimal downtime so that their end users, just like us who are using these banking applications, don't see any disruptions. So, which is fair point. We all want our banking applications to be up all the time, ticketing systems to be up all the time. So
that's true. That's true. So you've got a demo to show us here, Karthik.
Yes,
too.
I want to show 3 use cases.
Okay.
First, I want to show how to create a highly available RDS for DB2 instance using the multi-AZ option. We can do during this section, I can show you some of the other options, like how to set up a database, but the focus will be on creating a highly available database. And then I can show how this failover happens. We can do a user generated failover, and I can show you how this failover happens quickly. And then finally, if you are developing an application and you have not set up high availability today, I can show you how to convert your single AZ or a like single AZ instance into a multi-AZ instance. So let's get into the 3 use cases.
I'll pull your screen up, and as I do, I'll remind everybody we are live. So please, if you have questions while Karthik is going through this, drop them in chat. Jasmine and I will get them asked.
Yeah, and if this is your first time in ever seeing the AWS console, let's hear about it. I would love to know if there's any first-time people who have never seen the inside of an AWS console. Tell us.
Yep. So I'm into the AWS console. I selected RDS. So we are into the RDS part of the AWS management console. So I'm going to click databases here. So you already see some database instances that are running. So we'll get into the first use case, which I mentioned, which is creating a database RDS or highly available RDS Db2 multi-AZ instance. And then we'll get into the next two use cases. So I'm going to create, oh, it's showing some error. That's a good timing. Let me federate it again.
Okay.
It might have signed off. Hopefully you can continue
Probably.
to see my screen.
I'll bring it back up once you are ready. There you go.
Perfect. So I'm again getting into the RDS console, getting into the DB instances, and I'm clicking create database. So this is our RDS create database page, and you could see all the database engines that are available under the RDS. You can see Aurora, MySQL, Aurora Postgres. You can see the open source databases, MySQL, MariaDB, Postgres, and Oracle SQL Server, and now DB2. So these are the templates. Sorry, go ahead.
I said there's that DB2 that we're looking for.
Yep, here you go. So here are our templates in terms of how you can create. So I'm going to create, pick the standard create. You can also select easy create if you want to quickly do that. And then I'm going to select DB2. So we have two editions available for DB2, the DB2 standard and the DB2 advanced editions. So I'm going to select DB2 standard, and then you have the engine version here. So we support 11.5.9. That's a specific version of IBM DB2 that we support. And all the upcoming or the next major versions will support it here. You can see that in the drop-down.
Nice.
So we have production and the development. So I'll choose production because I'm going to simulate that this is a highly available database. So I'll keep most of these parameters as default. So database identifiers, I'll keep it as database 4. Master name, I'll keep it there. I'll give a password instead of auto-generating one. And then let's go into instance configuration. So RDS for DB2 is supported across standard classes, that is the M instance types, as well as the memory optimized ones, like we have the R6 size and X2 IEDNs, and then we also have the burstable classes. So for now, I'll choose the burstable classes, which are the T3 instances. So I'll choose a T3 small. Then we also support two storage types, which is GP3 as well as IO1. So I'll choose GP3 with 20 gigabytes of storage. And then you can also enable an auto storage scaling, which customers typically do. So again, I'm not selecting going through all the options here, but this is an option which we always recommend customers running production workloads so that you can your storage gets automatically scaled, right? So this is the key part I want to focus on. So you see an option here for availability and durability, and it's a multi-AZ deployment that is available for RDS for DB2. So RDS for DB2 supports multi-AZ with one standby, meaning that within a region, you can create another standby into a different availability zone. So I'm going to just select this create a standby instance, which is typically recommended for production. And then I'm going to go down. So all these connectivities settings, I'm going to keep it default because I'm not going to change any of those. I'm just going to keep all the VPC settings as well default. So I'm going to keep the default port and authentication. I'll keep it as password. And then I'll have the default monitoring, which is the RDS enhanced monitoring. So here are some additional configurations which I would like to show. So here you can enter a database name if you'd like to, or if you're restoring, you don't need to. And then you have to choose your parameter group, right? This is kind of a prerequisite for creating an RDS for DB2 instance. So I had pre-created my RDS DB2 parameter group, which has my IBM licensing information. And I have selected that. So that's what you see here. So all the other settings, you can just keep it on, like you can enable the automated backups. When we started discussing about what RDS is, and these are all some of the undifferentiated database administrative tasks that RDS takes care of. And you can enable them with a push of a button, right? Like you can enable the automated backups, you can do a point-in-time recovery, you saw how easy it was to just set up a highly available database or standby database.
Yeah. So Karthik, I don't mean to throw you off, but we are running short of time, unfortunately, for your segment. Do you want to maybe skip over to like switching over an existing RDS DB2 instance to high availability? Maybe we can cover that. We've got maybe about 2 minutes or so left.
Cool. Yep. I'll click on create. I'm not going to wait for this to be creating. So it shows it's creating. So now let's get into our second.
That one's highly available, right? Like, because we selected it when creating it.
Yep. You can see it here. MultiAZ, yes.
Wonderful.
So now let's get into database 2, which is already a highly available database, and it is standard edition. So let's show how the failover works, right? So I'm going to close this window. So before going there, I would like to show the configuration tab where you can say the instance class and all these. You can see the primary region being the US East 1D, and then the secondary region here, secondary zone here is the US East 1A. So this is something that I want you to keep a note of, because when we do a failover, what will happen is this will switch. The primary will become the 1A, and then secondary will become the 1D. And then the other important thing is this is the endpoint that applications use, and this will remain static, right? So let's now go and click into the failover. So I'm going to do a user generated failover. So I'm going to do a reboot and reboot with failover. So once I click on that, you can see that the database starts to reboot and it starts to failover, right? I can go on and check into the logs. So generally the logs will record all the events. Logs and events tab will get you all the events, right? So you can go there and see all the failover that you started. So it says the MultiAZ instance failover started. So you could see that, and you could see the region and the status of the database getting rebooting. So this usually happens in around under 120 seconds without any data loss, and then you could see that the application can automatically reconnect without any downtime. Right, that's the most important part.
Nice. Yeah, I don't know if we're going to be able to get to your last segment there, unfortunately, but I think those two are very good indicators of that high availability.
Yep.
Thank you for showing those. Unfortunately, Karthik, we do have to move on, so I'm going to take your screen down. But any parting words for the audience? Where can they learn more about DB2 support for RDS?
Yeah, you can get started with your RDS console, create your databases. And yeah, if you have more questions, feel free to reach out to us.
All right. Thank you so much for coming on the show. We'll hope to see you again in the future.
Yeah. Thank you, AM. Thank you, Jasmine.
Thanks, Karthik.